of medical workers who blocked ICE agents from arresting an illegal immigrant in California are now facing criminal charges.
America, we just got a perfect example of what happens when you think you're above federal law. 2 medical workers in Ontario, California are now facing up to 15 years in federal prison for physically blocking ICE agents who were trying to arrest an illegal immigrant from Honduras. Jose Ortega and Danielle Davila thought that they could grab federal agents, wedge themselves between officers and suspects, and obstruct a lawful arrest. But here's the reality check. It doesn't matter if you work at a hospital. It doesn't matter if you think you're being compassionate. And it doesn't matter what your politics are. When you put hands on federal agents, you're committing a felony.
According to the criminal complaint, ICE officers were conducting, quote, roving immigration-related operations when they followed a truck that made a sharp turn into the parking lot of a surgery center. The officers then, quote, decided to conduct a consensual encounter with the 3 adult males who were inside the truck.
What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This illustrates the difference between legal protest and criminal obstruction. These people crossed the line from exercising their rights to committing federal crimes, and now they're learning that actions have consequences. Let me break down exactly what happened and why these medical workers are now facing serious federal time. On July 8th, ICE agents were conducting immigration operations when they followed 3 men in a truck that made a sharp turn into a surgical center parking lot in Ontario.
An intense encounter captured on video earlier this month, while federal agents say they were conducting an immigration operation in Ontario.
Let go!
Are seen trying to intervene by blocking and pushing the officers.
2 of the men ran, but one, later identified as an illegal alien from Honduras, ran into a surgical center. And that's where Jose Ortega, 38 years old, and Danielle Davila, 33 years old, decided to interfere with federal enforcement operations.
It's cell phone video that went viral a couple of weeks ago showing employees at a surgery center in Ontario trying to stop federal agents from arresting a suspected undocumented immigrant.
The criminal complaint is very specific on what they did. Davila wedged herself under Officer 1 and the target alien, while Ortega appeared to grab Officer 1's arm and his vest. Both shouted out at these officers, telling them to get out and let him go. Now, these 2 are facing some serious federal charges: assault on a federal officer and intimidation to prevent them from discharging their duties. If convicted, they could each face up to 15 years in federal prison.
Get your hands off of me!
An intense encounter captured on video earlier this month, and today, more than 2 weeks later, federal officers returning to the scene and arresting Ortega for assault and intervene.
Ortega was arrested Friday morning, but Davila is still on the run. Federal sources tell Fox News that they went to her house, but she wasn't there. So they also talked to her family, and now she's considered a wanted fugitive.
Yeah, and talking to federal sources, they are actively looking for Davila right now. They went to her house this morning. She wasn't there, so they talked to her family, and she's considered a wanted fugitive right now, so we'll update.
Both suspects were warned by officers that they should not touch federal agents, but they continued their interference anyways. The illegal immigrant was eventually arrested and removed from the surgery center. Of course, immigration activists immediately jumped to defend these criminals, claimed that they did nothing wrong and they were exercising their rights. One activist said, in no way were they interfering. They were simply exercising the right to privacy. They were exercising the right to know who's in the building.
In no way are they intervening. They're simply exercising the right to privacy. They're exercising the right to know who is in their building. They're exercising the right to know who is in this building with a weapon, right?
But here's the problem with that argument. ICE agents identified themselves as federal law enforcement. They weren't random people with weapons. They were sworn federal officers conducting lawful arrests. And you don't have the right to physically grab federal agents and obstruct their duties. The activist continued. Listen to what he had to say.
And I think it's important to note that what they did is commendable, and it is brave.
Ortega's family is expressing shock at his arrest, with one of the relatives saying,
My uncle is not a threat to society. He is a father, a son, an uncle, a friend, a co-worker, a brother, and a U.S. citizen of America.
Look, I understand that families want to defend their loved ones, but being a father, a son, a U.S. citizen doesn't give you the right to assault federal officers. The law applies to everyone equally, regardless of family status or citizenship.
Today, Ortega's family speechless by what happened.
Right away, just you want answers, you want to know what happened, why it happened. So we were all completely shocked to see that.
But the answer is pretty clear. He physically grabbed a federal agent who was conducting a lawful arrest, and that's a federal crime. There's no mystery here. U.S. Attorney Bill Assaley made the government's position crystal clear in his statement about this case. He emphasized that there's no sanctuary spaces when it comes to federal law enforcement.
And we want to be clear because there's an idea out there that somehow there's safe areas or sanctuaries, whatever you want to call it. There are no sanctuaries from federal law. It doesn't matter if it's a hospital, a medical facility, a court, a church. There is no sanctuary from the enforcement of federal law.
Bill Assaley also addressed the critics who might say that these medical workers didn't know what was happening.
They may have not known who the target was, but they knew those were federal agents. They identified themselves. And in fact, I think one of the defendants was asking for a warrant. So they very well knew they were law enforcement officials.
The message to anyone thinking about interfering with federal operations is simple. Don't get in our way. Don't touch our agents. If you lay hands on agents, you will be arrested. Whether it's in this moment, weeks later, or a month later, it doesn't matter. We'll find you, we'll arrest you, and you will face federal charges. America, this case is a perfect teaching moment about the differences between legal protest and criminal obstruction.
Get your hands off of him. Hey, let go. Get off. Get off. Coming into a private business like this? Get out. You're touching the federal agent. I'm not
You are not a federal agent to begin with.
I'm not touching you. Identify yourself.
You have the right to disagree with immigration enforcement. You have the right to peacefully protest. You have the right to voice your opposition to government policies. But you do not have the right to physically interfere with federal law enforcement operations. You do not have the right to grab federal agents. And you do not have the right to obstruct lawful arrests, no matter how much you disagree with them. Jose Ortega and Danielle Davila thought that they were being heroes by protecting an illegal immigrant from Honduras who had ran into their surgery center to evade arrest. But what they actually did was commit federal felonies that could land them up to 15 years in prison. The illegal immigrant that they were trying to protect wasn't even a patient in the facility. He was just using it as a place to hide from federal agents. And now 2 American citizens are facing serious prison time because they decided to take law into their own hands. This is what happens when activist rhetoric meets legal reality. For years, Democrats and immigration activists have been telling people that they cannot resist ICE operations and create sanctuary spaces where federal law does not apply. But that's not how our legal system works. There are no sanctuaries from federal law. It doesn't matter if you're in a hospital. It doesn't matter if you're in a church, school, or anywhere else. When federal agents are conducting lawful operations, you cannot physically interfere without facing serious criminal consequences. The days of treating immigration law like a suggestion are absolutely over. Let me know what you guys think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.